Hi, and welcome to the tutorial for learning how to use the cost of goods workbook as part of winebusinesseducation.com and associated programs. So what we're going to go through today is how to access the workbooks, selecting the workbook, saving and bookmarking your work, and then how to re-access your workbooks, then a quick run through and tutorial of the actual cost of goods workbook. So the first thing you need is whatever email address you use to sign up for the course or for the services. And you should have received an email with your password so that you can sign in. In any event that you've forgotten your password, or if you know that you've signed up but cannot find your password, simply use the forgot password function, put in the email that you used to sign up for the program, and then you'll receive immediately a new email to access the course. Okay, so I've got my email address and password in. This will be the first page that you see. This means that you are actually in the spreadsheetserver.com system. And then you have a number of different workbooks to choose from and play with or use for your business purposes. And we're going to focus on the winery cost of goods workbook today. So when I select that, then I come up with this screen, and you're going to want to look in the upper left-hand corner where it says New. And when I select that, voila, there is the workbook. Now, it's very important to know that your work is saved at a unique URL for your workbook. And so if you need to recall the workbook and work on it over time and so forth, you have to go through the proper saving steps. So if I put in my name or the winery name and so forth, so we'll just call this Test Wine 1. You can name it by the variety or so forth, whatever your project is, and of course your own name and the date. And you can just use this drop down, and we are on the brand new day of January 1st, winery name and so forth. That's all you really need to start. And basically what I'm then going to do in the upper left is go to save. Now, you'll notice there's a URL up here, and as soon as I hit save, it's going to give me a new URL. This is very important because this is how you get back to your workbook. It's not saved on your computer, it's saved on our servers. If at any time you need to work from a different computer or access it remotely at another time, you will actually need then this URL. You can email it or text it or make a note of it. So if you're working at work and then on your work computer and want to work on it at home or vice versa, you need to have this to get back to the workbook. Okay, so now to save this, what I want to do is I want to go to my favorites. I want to name the project accordingly so that I'll know how to get back to it. And I've actually set up a folder, as you can see, for all of my workbooks. So I can create a new folder if I like, but basically I want to put this into my Wine Biz Sim projects and hit done. Okay, so that's now saved to my favorites, or it's bookmarked. And this is how you reopen a project. So when I want to go back into this project, there it is under my Wine Biz Sim projects, or it might just simply be under your, if you don't choose to create your own folder, it might just simply be under your favorites list. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm ready to work on my project now. And so I go up here and I hit edit. All right, now I've got it in an editable form. It saved my work. I can keep it in an edit mode, and I can also auto save it. but basically every time you exit the program, just for safety's sake, hit save. And again, remember to re-access from your favorites folder or list, okay? So now that I'm in, let me just go through the basic features with you and show you all the kind of fun we can have. The program is fully populated so that basically you can just go in and change numbers and see then the effect that the different fields have on the margin and profitability of the wine that you're creating. So if we're creating, for example, a red wine blend that's going to sell for $25, that's how we've got the program pre-selected. You get to go in and say, but I want to make 500 cases or 10,000 cases of wine. And so when I can change that that number for production, and you can see then it's going to, as soon as I enter that, it's going to tell me how much more gross margin, what my grape costs, and all of these variables will be. The other key number on tab 1, these are the tabs across the top here. So, and the project info is also the variable for your resale price, your target FOB selling price that the winery would sell the goods to a wholesaler or use for a transfer price for your wine club or tasting room, those kind of things, okay? So right now, the way this is set up is $133 per case FOB. You can see that gives me a $24.89 roughly retail projection, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But as I change, this is called a stepper, as I step the price up, you'll see the effect that it's not only having on the retail price when I raise my price at the winery, but also how it's going to affect my gross margin. What's fun about this is you can, as you plug in the correct numbers, you can then run a number of different scenarios to optimize your profitability, to see where you should be. And remember that we've also got a completely separate price calculator in our choice of workbooks, so you can do a much more detailed and thorough workup of the retail price, okay? So the next thing that we'll want to do is go to Grape costs, and you're going to have a running number for your case goods, cost of goods, your gross margin, and your total gross margin based on the number of cases that you're producing. In this case, we moved that up to 10,000 cases, okay? Underneath Grape costs, and on every tab, we're going to have instructions, resources, and FAQ. So if you ever get stuck or want to take a look at the instructions and read them more thoroughly, just click on this and it'll open in a separate page. And then we also have different resources now and again. In this case, the California Grape Crush Report, which is the most thorough and comprehensive listing of grape transactions and prices for all of California. It's 200 pages of information data, and it's very cool. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we've got this project preset for Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. We've put in a cost per ton of $2,500 and $1,800. And now what we're going to want to do is go in and change this, because that's 150% of our grapes. This needs to equal 100, not 150. And you may want to do a white wine, you might want to do a rosé. In this case, we're going to do a blend. So I can go down and say, well, you know what? I'd really like to do a Rhone blend. So I'm going to go down and find Syrah. It's going to give me some price guidelines. These are just very general, and again, based on how general or specific the AVA or the appellation for the wine is. And so it could be that perhaps I'm getting my Syrah at $1,800 a ton. So I just put that in there, and then I hit enter, and it's going to make an adjustment for that. The other thing I'm going to need to do is, obviously I can't have 150% of the blend, so I'm going to change this to 50%. And then watch in the upper hand right here, it's going to tell me what the allocated cost of this 50% of the grapes is, and then it's going to also show me what this change in grape price does to my margin and my profitability. So I'm going to now click off of that field. Whoa, and you can see we're now making a significantly greater gross margin because we've selected less expensive grapes. And then maybe I want to blend this with Grenache, and maybe Grenache is a little bit harder to find. So let's say that that's $2,000 a ton, and boom, that can enter in there. And maybe I want to have about 30% of that. So I can put that at 30%. Now you'll see that we still have to find 20% of something else. So I can go in, and if you don't have a wine that's specifically in here, you can just use other, and then make a note of the grape variety over here. Or we also have some fields down here that you can enter a grape variety in the price. Okay, so maybe we're going to do this with a semi-traditional Rhone blend, and we're going to put some Petite Syrah in here, and that maybe we got a really great value on these grapes, and that it was $1,000 a ton, and then we're going to use 20% of that to beef things up. Okay, so you can use any combination of grapes. You can also use this. You may be making a single variety wine like Pinot Noir, and then you could use, if you're buying from different growers, or maybe you have different blocks of your own grapes that you're using, you can break it down to all of a single variety, Chardonnay, Riesling, Pinot, etc., and then put in what block they're from or which grower, and the individual pricing. So it can be used for blends and for single variety production. Okay, and so now we've got this at 100%. We've got our blend going here. If we wanted to noodle with this later, we could say, you know what, we're going to co-ferment some Viognier in here, and we've got some nice Viognier that we can pick up. We're going to make this 10% of the blend, and again, now we're at 120%, so I'm going to change this to 45, and then the Grenache down to 25. So remember, you want to have this at 100%, and it'll show you immediately what happened. Okay, now over on the production worksheet, we got a number of different options. If you're going to make your wine 100% from grapes, then we're going to tell you how many tons you need, the total cost of your grapes, and then a reference cost for how much of the cost of grapes would be in each case of your finished wine. All right. We have the ability for anybody who wishes to also, if you want to create a wine using bulk wine, some percentage of it or even all of it, you can then step that up to as little or as much as you would like. All right. And it's important to know that when you're entering the cost of your bulk wine, it is down on line 19 down here. Okay. So this is where you would input the cost per gallon of finished material. It might be out of your own cellar that you've already been made, and you ascribe a value per gallon, or you might be buying bulk wine from a bulk wine supplier or another winery to add. So we've got complete freedom of how you want to do that as well. Okay? For the wine that's being made from the grapes on the previous page, then the next calculation is how many cases of finished wine do you project from each ton of fruit? And for really high-end reds, this might be as low as 50 or even less. But watch what happens is we step up or down how hard we're going to squeeze those grapes. So you can see as at 60 cases per ton, we're at a gross margin of over $451,000. As I step this down, the more stingy and the lighter my pressing, we're down below $370,000 gross margin from the product. Okay, if you're making a botrytis wine or something like that, also, or if you're dealing with a challenging vineyard, one of the really cool facets of this is you can create your project and then you can save and clone your project also, or save it as a PDF or whatever you need to do. So up here, if I hit save, it will then allow me to clone the project. And so I can save the project from that URL up here. And if I clone it, remember then it's a new workbook and I need to bookmark it and I need to save that URL. All right. If you want to share this or email this, you can also save it as a PDF, save it to a folder or your desktop or somewhere you can find it and so forth. And then you can also email a copy if you'd like. All right. The save as Excel is not functional. So just a heads up on that one. Okay, so when I'm ready to go back, now I've got a problem. It's not letting me do that. When that happens, I've got to look up here and hit edit. One quick note also, if you want to start another workbook, or if you want to do something new, you can go back to what's called the auto filter, and that'll get you back to where you go to work on your to open a new project and save it again as you would in the first place. Okay, so that's the auto filter. And if you see the edit button, and you want to work on your workbook, just make sure to select the edit button. Okay. All right. So here we are in the project again. We've been through grape costs. We're into production. Some of these are very general numbers. The most important one being what is your cost, excluding aging and cellaring and package, for the fermentation and production of the wine. If you're talking with a custom crush facility, if you're making your own wine, you need to find out what a good number for this would be representative of the project that you're making or the wine you're intending to make. So if you're a winery, what we recommend is work with your accountant to get the number. What was our total production costs for our wine over the course of the year? Divide that by your production, and that'll get you that number. We've put $800 in here, but it's pretty easy to call custom crush facilities to get a lot of different quotes on this. And the number can range from as low as $400 or $500 to well over $1,000 or more. If you're using a custom crush number, also make sure that it's comprehensive, because a lot of times they'll give you a base number, but then add on an awful lot of costs that you'll actually need. Now, if you're doing something special with pre-fermentation and handling of your grapes, You can add that here. Maybe you need special equipment or must chiller. You're going to do additional sorting of the grapes, those kind of things. There might be a one-time additional cost that you would add. So there's a number of different ways that you can input this number. And if I say, you know, I've got to hire a piece, rent a piece of equipment that's going to cost me $1,000 this year, then it'll tell me what that works out to on a per case basis. All right. And so these over here would be for a per ton basis. These are like a one-time expense over on the side here. Okay. So any, again, sort of during production, maybe something comes up, you need to again have special services, equipment or supplies and whatever. And then we've got lab work and analysis that you would need. And this line 19 again pertains to if you're using bulk wine. All right. Now, if we do want to use the bulk wine, let's say it costs us $40 a gallon, and we wanted to throw this in, and we wanted to use 10%. It's also then going to give us the breakdown down here of what how much that bulk wine is going to cost, how much is required, and then what the per case allocated cost would be to a case of finished wine. State and federal taxes, and we've got this set at a standard table wine, and we've got a handy dandy little tab here to click, and there's all your everything and more you ever wanted to know about taxes and TTB issues. Okay, so at the end of this page, we now have our total cost of wine per case of finished wine. All right, not finished goods, because we don't have bottles or packaging, and we haven't done our aging and cellaring. Okay, so that's that tab. And then we go to barrel costs. We're very proud of this program. Barrel costs number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this might be new French oak, or these could be different barrel suppliers. What percentage of wine is going into the barrel program? How long is it going to be in the barrel program? Okay, so these are the fundamental numbers most people are familiar with. Your barrels cost you this, you're going to age it for this long. These other sections are really important to understand, that all go into, it's just not the cost of the barrel. There are many things that contribute to the overall cost of your barrel aging. So first of all, let's say that this is our new oak program, okay? And that this is French oak, and that these cost us whatever your cost is. It could be $1,100 a ton or a barrel. It could be, you know, $1,500. What are you going to do with it after you use them? And are you going to transfer them into another program? So what I'm going to have here is French oak. Excuse me. All right. So what I'm going to do is this wine, we're not really going to probably be able to use a lot of new French oak, but I'm going to use this for a demonstration. I'm going to put 50% and 50%. And at this time, we're going to put it 6 months into new oak and then 6 months into used oak. Now, the way this works is you purchase the barrels and then you have to do something with them. If it's new oak, you only get to use it once, and then you can transfer it into another program, or you can sell it. Now, you can also make adjustments for barrel capacity. So is it a standard 60-gallon oak, or is it one of many, many variables of 225 liters, et cetera, et cetera. And this is going to then give you the net cost for the life of the barrel. and then the number of years that we're going to use it. And since this is French oak, we can only have one use as new oak. Okay. So these numbers, and again, you could make American oak, you can do different suppliers, however you need to do this. The next part of this workbook is going to then give you the cost per barrel per month, how many barrels you require of each, and what's your net cost of the barrels, and then extrapolating that to the cost of barrel aging per bottle. Okay. Now on the right-hand side are also totals, so that number of gallons, equivalent number of cases that's transferred from the front page. Remember, if you want to change this to 8,000 or 500,000 cases, you do that on tab 1. All right, so we're going to do that. Annual evaporative loss and then the cost of the topping wine are both variables you can use. This really points to the importance of proper storage conditions. It seems to be annual evaporative loss is somewhere in the range of 3 to 4%, but if you don't have the proper storage, it can be as high as 10%, which is really expensive. So even just changing this by 1%, all right, and again, we're going to be able to see this. So right now, our gross margin's roughly 382,000. If we have a 1% further loss of evaporation rate, and let's say that we have it in both of our cellars, all right, you can see that it's affected our gross margin pretty dramatically. So these numbers are really important to know in understanding costs. So that's the barrel tab. And then there's additional aging that you need to plan for storage in the winery, in tanks or in uprights or eggs or whatever. And then there's also additional costs, and certainly oak alternatives, chips, blocks, additives, you name it, can be added. And let's say that you're using a new concrete egg technology, you can put in a single cost relative to this, and or any other storage and related costs that you might. Okay. Additional cellar treatments. Now, usually stabilization, clarification, filtering, and all that is covered in your total production cost, but many times you might have an exception, or you might just simply want to separate these costs separately, and you can do so. So let's say that you needed to rent a reverse osmosis machine, equipment and whatever, and it'll break that down and tell you then how much that's adding to it. And then you're going to have to store both your bulk wine and your finished case goods before you release them, all right? So this is an estimated cost of storage. Many times you might want to use an off-site warehouse or storage facility, and they charge you something called an in and out fee. And so you need to know this is when you bring your barrels in and out, but also sometimes even going in and getting samples and whatever. So and this is before taxes paid, and this is after taxes paid. Okay, and we've just put some nominal numbers in here again for a guideline. In our packaging and bottling area, you've got your, if you know a final cost of the entire packaging per case, you can put that in there, or you can do an individual workup of what are the bottles costs. And this usually, when you purchase bottles, it usually includes the boxes, but you might have an additional cost for the box graphics or something like that. So you can accommodate that. Whatever closure you're going to use, capsules if they're required, wax, whatever. Your cost of the labels, and remember, it's not only what each label costs that you use, but very often because of vintages and because of changes in label, it's actually however many labels you have produced. And this is your cost per label, per bottle. And if we're doing 3,000 cases, this might be, 35 cents. And again, look up here at our gross margin. Once we enter that in, that made a big difference because this is per bottle that we're talking about here. All right. So that was a big savings. Let's say that we can even shave a penny off this. And again, look up at the top here. All right. And it's an extra $1,000 that we made. Then do you have any additional packing costs, wooden boxes, special things that you put in, neck hangers, tissue wrap, those kind of things. All right. And that's your total packaging cost per case. It can range anywhere from very, very low if you're making $2 chuck to $50 or $60, and in some case with really wild packaging even more. All right, so then you're going to need to understand what a certificate of label approval is, and any design and so forth for additional packaging expenses. Maybe you hired a graphic artist and paid them $3,000 to and then plus you're going to have your certificate of label approval and those kind of things, and you enter those in. Okay, your bottling line, or if you're using a third party and outsourcing to send your wine to be bottled, or mobile bottling, what's the cost per case? Additional bottling line setup, changeover fees, and then anything that might arise as additional bottling costs. This will now give you your finished cost of goods. That means it's the wine, it's the packaging, it's in a box, and it's ready for sale. Okay? So our next look then is the breakdown. It'll show you that the unallocated cost of finished goods, meaning this is not what this does not include labor, this does not include your overhead or those kind of things. Here's your budget for all of that. That's your gross margin. All right, and inside of this, you've got your grapes, your production, bulk, barrel aging, et cetera, broken down. And then finally, here's the formula that we're using as the calculator for your retail selling price, is taking the winery FOB from tab 1, and then the total revenue for this wine, a distributor selling price that includes freight, landed cost, a markup to the licensed resellers on and off premise, and then an estimated retail selling price. Okay? And again, this is just to give you a guideline so that if we go back to our project info on page 1, here we've got our FOB from this section right here that we can move up or down. This is that auto-calculated estimated price, our total revenue, our cost of goods, our margin as a percentage, how many tons of grapes we need, the cost of those grapes, and our total margin. So have fun with this. Remember, you can make as many workbooks as you like. Once you save the project, you're good to go. You can clone it, you can save new, you can create a new one and this will open up an empty form, but always remember you have to bookmark or add to favorites any project, because you'll need this unique identifier to get back to your work. Thank you very much, and enjoy the product and the workbooks. And there's more information at winebusinesseducation.com. And again, we always have the instructions and FAQs there. And on every beginning page is also a quick reminder of how to save your work.